Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bio. My guest today is someone who's worn more creative hats than most people could dream of and somehow makes it all look effortless. Alfie Joey is an artist, actor, writer, presenter, singer and impressionist who's appeared everywhere from the Comedy Store to Coronation Street. For years, he presented The Breakfast Show on BBC Radio Newcastle, and if you've ever heard him, you'll know how naturally he connects with people. He's one half of the comedy impressionist duo The Mimic Men, whose Britain's Got Talent performance racked up more than 3 million views. And he's also a public speaking coach known as the Speak Easy Guy, helping people communicate with confidence and impact. Alfie's TEDx talk, Changing Lanes, has had thousands of views and shares his story of reinvention, something that we're going to be digging into today. I was on a panel with Alfie recently and I was amazed when he told me that he still gets nervous before going on stage, even after everything that he's done. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about nerves, reinvention, creativity and connection, and how to bring more joy and authenticity to your personal brand. Welcome to the show, Alfie.
And I'm nervous now.
Why?
I am.
Why?
Because it means I care.
Yes.
Because I want it to be good. And I put thought into it, and I was listening to previous episodes. I've listened to this podcast for quite a while, but I thought, I'll catch up. And I listened to John Forth's episode, really good. Mm-hmm. He's really natural and likeable. But I thought you brought the best out. It's a great podcast, so I want it to be good, so that's why I get nervous.
Yeah, well, it really surprised me, and I have got a question for you about nerves. So let's jump into that. Since as we've started with that, because we were on a panel together recently, and I was genuinely surprised when you said that to me. So I now understand, why you think that, and I think nerves are a good thing as well. But how do you handle those nerves now? And do you actually think that they help rather than hinder performance?
They can do both.
Yeah.
So I think you can make it a lot easier for yourself and reduce your nerves if you're really, really over the top prepared. I think that definitely, the times where I've come a cropper or haven't done brilliantly, it wasn't so much about nerves, it was more about preparation or lack of preparation. And the more prepared I am, the less nervous I get. But I've still got processes. I build in body language exercises. I'll do preparation, mental techniques, trying to get myself, I talk myself into the gig rather than out of the gig. And this goes back to, I did a comedy gig on Saturday night, and I still do this now because, again, I look back to the times I've lost, and I've lost a lot in comedy where you've looked out and your shoulders stoop and you think, I don't like the look of these. These look tough. This looks awkward. And you start to stoop and your body language is wrong. And so now I'll go in the opposite direction and roll my shoulders back. And I tell myself how lucky I am to do this. And I'd say, this is a great job. This is brilliant. My brother and sister have done jobs they haven't wanted to do all their lives. And I just give myself a reality check and say, I get to do this. It's great. And suddenly I'm in a totally different frame of mind.
So a lot of it's around mindset, then, isn't it? And how you frame that.
It is. I did a thing for Sunderland University lecturers, and we did a little session in a classroom. Then we went into the David Putnam suite to do exercise with cameras and microphones. And we went in, and these are seasoned communicators. And I said, I'm not going to be Jeremy Paxman. I'm just going to give you an experience of being in front of a camera. I'm only going to ask you questions about what you know. There's no testing here. This is just to feel what it's like with the cameras there. And some of them went white. And I said, any questions? And one of them put her hand up and she says, what do you do about imposter syndrome? And I said, first of all, how do you think I felt coming here today to Sunderland University, where I'm a pit village lad, talking to university lecturers? I said, you've all got the brains the size of planets. And I felt imposter syndrome today, but I don't call it a syndrome because I think that is a medical term. It's a horrible, nasty thing. So I call it healthy, humble excitement. And it just flips it. So healthy, because it's good for you to communicate. It's a form of exercise. It's been proven. Humble, it means you care, and excitement, it's a brilliant thing to do.
I like it. I like that a lot. A great way to reframe it. Yeah. And it is a positive thing because you care. And I think the preparation point is really valuable as well, because I know, looking back on where I've not been so great when I've spoken at something, and it usually is that not being prepared.
Yeah. And certainly when I was on the radio and when I do conferences, if I'm in the facilitator's position, the more I prepare, the less I actually need to use. It sounds bonkers,
No, I get that.
but it sets you up to be freer. And it means you can go in different directions because you know wherever you go, you can come back to where you need to. But very often you don't. And if you listen really carefully, I put this on a post recently about hosting. And I think a massive part of the host job that is underrated is listening. And it's about listening deeply for opportunities, for things that you didn't expect to come up. And I know the golden moments when I've done big conferences, it wasn't always the thing that I was chasing. It was the thing that I listened for, and I didn't expect that.
Exactly, and if you're prepared, then that gives you the space to listen.
Yes,
whereas if
yeah.
you're unprepared, you're always thinking ahead. Oh God, what do I need to say next, or where am I?
And you
at?
can hear that. Yeah.
I get that. I get that. Your TEDx talk, Changing Lanes, has had thousands of views, and it clearly resonated with people. What kind of impact did doing that talk have on your career and personal brand? What doors does it open for you?
Well, it's a funny one, that, because it's about changing your job, taking a risk, not being stuck. And it's bizarre. I still get messages now from people who say,
When did you
I
do
saw
it?
that, I think 2018, 2017, 2018. And I did it. And then quite a few firms asked me in and then said, ooh, could you not do it so it asks people to leave the job? So I thought I better devise a new talk. So I've got a new talk, Speak Easy Guy, and I talk about talking and I talk about communicating. However, this year it's had a renaissance and I've been asked to do it under different circumstances. So I've just been to Belgium to do it. So I did it for the EU, to the Fisheries Commission, and everyone in the audience was from a different country.
Amazing.
So that was a good test. So the night before, I'm at this soiree saying, where are you from? I'm from Latvia, right? And where are you from? Italy. And we'd have chats. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a really good test of my English and slow things down. And so I did it there. And I also did it at GlaxoSmithKline because they've just closed a massive plant over in Ulverston. But they're looking after everyone. And some people have been there for decades.
Yeah.
They haven't written a CV. They haven't done an interview. So I went over and did the Changing Lanes talk about how to move on, how to not be stuck, how you can still, it's never too late. When I've revisited it, the talk is re-nosed now as It's Never Too Late. Because I think I'm the poster boy for It's Never Too Late. Everything I've done, I've started way too late, but it's been all right. I've got somewhere.
Brilliant. So that talk then, doing that TEDx talk, has created lots of opportunities to speak elsewhere and get paid for that. Amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
But also it's that whole connection with people still getting in touch now just to probably send you a message or say that it resonated with them, but also those opportunities that it's led
Massively. I mean, TEDx or TED is just a big badge of credibility. It looks good. People can find you. People can stumble upon you. I just got a message the other day from someone I just didn't know, and they said that talk changed everything. Someone who I really look up to told me recently they'd left their job because of that talk. In a good way. In a good way. And it is, you've got a responsibility, you know, when you do a talk, and you sometimes you don't know the difference you're going to make.
Did you get more nervous for TEDx than you do for other things? Because I know when I did mine, it was probably the most terrifying moment of my life.
Yeah, it was a biggie. It was huge. I nearly always get asked to go on first when there's a multi-speaker event, because I've got a certain amount of energy. And if I was booking an event, I'd put me on first. Yeah. But it's hard going on first because the room's cold. Everyone's just got there. They don't quite know what the gig is. They don't know what the vibe is. So you've got to hit the ground running. But I think I'm okay going on first. So it's out of the way, and then you can enjoy the rest of the day or the rest of the conference properly. So yeah, I was probably as nervous for that as the first time I did stand-up and all the big ones. It is, to me, TED, stand-up at certain gigs, Britain's Got Talent, they're like Wembley. And then the rest of the year, the in-between bits are like your normal Premier League matches.
Hello, it's Max here from the Moja team, interrupting this episode to bring you some important Moja news. We're making moves to get you known in 2026 by launching the Get Known Club. The Get Known Club is our new members community for founders and professionals who are great at what they do but could use a little help getting seen. Each month you'll get straightforward training, practical templates and a supportive community to help you to show up with confidence and consistency without the overwhelm. Join the waitlist and you'll also get access to the Get Known Game Plan, a free 90-minute masterclass which will help you to plan your 2026 visibility strategy. Head to the show notes for the link and let's make sure that next year people actually know just how cool you are.
Now, you've spent years on radio, stage and screen. What have you learned about connecting with an audience, whether it's one person on a podcast, us chatting now, or thousands on air or on television?
Yeah. You speak, we were taught on the radio, and it's, I think, the same in the podcast medium. We were taught to speak to one person. And that's why it's such an intimate medium, radio. So people actually feel very attached to you. And I still I haven't been on for three or 4 years now. And people come up to me and they'll say things that I mentioned that I forgot to mention. And it's a very intimate medium. It's not like TV, where TV is almost like a club and lots of people are in it together. Whereas radio, you speak to one person who's in their kitchen, putting the kettle on, and they're just listening to you. It's a one-on-one thing. Podcasts are the same. It's very intimate. And again, you sometimes don't know the difference you make. You don't know that, I never mention my kids' names on air. I never mention my wife's name. And people still come up to me and say, how's Alfie Joey Jr.? How's little Miss Joey? I give them these personas. And they ask questions about things I'd mentioned that I totally forgot about. So you again, it comes back to responsibility. You've got an audience who really care about what you say. So I put a lot into it. I did love it. I was obsessed by it. I didn't realise that till I left. I absolutely loved that show. And I didn't let it go. I gave it too much, really. I would come off air. We'd have an after-show meeting. I'd look at what was in the next day's show. I'd go home and research that. And then sometimes it all ended up in the bin anyway, because someone famous would die or something, and the whole running order would change. But actually, I loved it. It was such a buzz.
I bet. You mentioned there that you don't mention your wife's name or your children's names. Is that because that's a bit of a boundary that you've set for yourself in terms of your brand and what you want to share?
It certainly was on the radio, because it can be a very fanatical audience. It can be
some super fans.
You do, and you get people who turn up where I remember once or twice having to leave. That you'd be better off leaving out the back door because there's someone in reception who's a bit keen, and it's that thing of you when you talk on the radio. Some people really think you're talking just to them. And so it can be a little bit dodgy. So that was the choice.
That's fair. So you're now coaching people in speaking and presenting through your Speakeasy Guy work. What's one simple shift that instantly makes someone a better communicator?
Well, we mentioned it already. I think listening. Yeah. I think listening is a superpower. But I'll add this one: awareness. So when I was quite young, I trained to be a priest many years ago. We did a Myers-Briggs personality test. And I was high extrovert when I was young, annoyingly extrovert. And then we did an intensive Myers-Briggs personality test. And I thought, I'm not going to be like that anymore. I'm going to be more aware. I'm going to work from my shadow side. I'm going to be... I'll still be all right talking and presenting and communicating, but I'm going to listen a lot more. And it took a while. And then, interestingly, we did another Myers-Briggs test just before me and Charlie Charlton started as a double act on the radio to see what the power dynamic was, who was higher status, who was lower status. And it was interesting. I was an introvert. And I think... I've spoke to Herb Kim, who runs all the TED Talks about this, and he said the best speakers are usually introverts, nearly always introverts, because the high extroverts are so, they just crash in and they say, right, here it is, here's my talk, and it sounds good in the pitch, but it doesn't evolve, and it just goes out like that, and they don't think they have to do any more. Whereas the introverts care more and are more aware and really develop the talk, so it builds and builds with practice and rehearsal to the event itself, and then it's ready. And one of the best talks I heard, it was at Thinking Digital, and she was called Nadia Finer. And I was in the room as people were setting up, and she was rehearsing. She had a very quiet, shy voice, and her talk is called Shy and Mighty. And she's written books about shyness being a diversity issue, and it was, for me, it was the most powerful talk of the day. It wasn't somebody who was loud and brash and all bells and whistles.
That's so interesting. When I think about TEDx talks that have resonated with me and stuck with me, I can think of an example of a talk, and the last time I looked, she had over 9 million views on it. And she's an introvert, and she's someone that I see speak on video and stuff, but in real life is actually finds everything a bit overwhelming, but really brings it in that. And I kind of think that does work really well for all the reasons you've said, but I think the bit that I then struggle with is they're not the person you see on the screen in real life. So how does that match up?
Well,
that's the downside of it, potentially.
I think so, and I think sometimes people are probably disappointed in me that I'm not, and this comes with being a comedian as well. When you're a comedian, you have to make people
funny
laugh
all the time.
Yeah, and they think, well, you're not like that off stage. What, And so very often now, if I'm doing a dinner, or I'm hosting an event where there's a big dinner, I now tend to say, don't put me on the table, because the hardest part of the night is the 2 hours sat with people who are very well-meaning, but they want to chat to you, and they want you to be at that same energy as the guy who's just introduced the night, and you've sat down with them, and they go, all right, you're going to entertain us now for 2 hours. And my mind's on the script, 100%. On the auction prizes, on the charity details. So now I usually say, I'll eat with the tech guys, I'll have chips backstage, and I'll just go through the script. I'm working for you.
From comedy to art to acting, play and creativity clearly run through everything that you're doing or that we see that you're doing. How important do you think fun and curiosity are in building a personal brand that stands out?
Curiosity is massive for me. I'm constantly learning, constantly trying to find out new things, lifelong learning. I love it. And I just, there's still so much I want to do and so much I want to achieve. I think that's why I've come to lots of things late. But it's proof that you can carry on getting stuff out of life.
And you have moved between obviously lots of different things as we've spoken about, and all very different spaces as well. How do you manage those transitions without confusing the audience or losing momentum?
Well, that's a brilliant question. I have confused the audience, and I'm trying to be clearer about what I do now. So that's sadly meant having to reduce some of the other stuff, some of the fun stuff, and not put some of that out there as well. So I still do quite a lot of art. I still do drawings for different things, but I don't put that out there much. I've got a separate art Instagram account where I put it. But my LinkedIn is my main bread and butter world. So I've had to draw back some of the other stuff. So I'll give you an example. I did a confidence through comedy course in January and February when it's quiet and when people just want to try something new in January, New Year's resolution. And we've done 3 of them, and they work really well. They were such good fun. The people got so much out of them, purely for the LinkedIn audience. But even that confused people. So people were coming up to me saying, you know that confidence through comedy looks great. Do you also do stuff around public speaking? And I went, yes, that's my main thing. That's what I do. The comedy's just a little... So I've even decided not to do the confidence through comedy course. It's something I can always go back to. I can always build it into other stuff.
I remember I remember seeing lots of people's posts about that.
Yes.
Thinking, what's all this about?
It is an amazing... I didn't realise how powerful it would be. The first one we did, week 2, a guy put his hand up and said, hey, hope you don't mind, but is it okay if we all as a group go to Professor Joanna's house for dinner? Professor Joanna Berry from Durham University, she did the course, and she said, yes, I'd like to have. And I went, well, I didn't expect this to be like a social club, like a community. But they are communities, and they're still alive in the WhatsApp groups, and they still support each other, because that journey of doing stand-up comedy is quite a unique experience, and they'll always have that together, and they all supported each other, and they all came back to support the next cohort as well. So as special as it was, as brilliant as it was, I'm just stepping back from it for the time being, just to give the public speaking thing a little bit more clarity.
You're a natural storyteller. What advice have you got for business owners or leaders to use storytelling to build that real connection with people and that credibility?
Oh, I'm massive on this at the minute. I'm frustrated by people not telling enough stories and not telling their stories and keeping them secret. Not just businesses, charities drive me bananas. And I say this from a position of love, because I love so many charities. I do lots of charity balls, probably more than anyone else in the Northeast, and they're just not telling enough stories. They're not putting stuff out there, and this is the golden age of storytelling. There's never been a better time, and it might not last. So in the old days, you could tell stories via a billboard, or you could tell them via yellow pages or an advert on commercial radio. And that's finished now, because it's all about your phones. That's where we've got to tell stories. And the big difference is it's free. And yet I'll go into charities and they'll say to me, and it really winds me up, they'll say, your socials are very good. And I go, you've got an organisation behind you. You've got someone on socials, you've got someone on marketing. I'm a bloke with a phone, and I don't post as much as people think. I do a post I'm just consistent. I just post every morning at 6 o'clock. I schedule them, and I put them out, and just Monday to Friday, and that's it. And really, I don't do enough storytelling within that. I could do a whole lot more, but do not sit on stories. And I think it does sometimes take someone else just to go in and tell you how interesting you are, because I don't know whether it's a British thing, but we just go, well, that's not very interesting. So I went into a battery factory in South Shields, and they wanted some communication advice, and I think even I thought this might be a bit of a challenge, and I had a tour around, brilliant atmosphere, looked great, and I said, what does that battery do? I just pointed at a random battery, and the guy who showed me around said, well, that battery is the only battery that can work in a gadget that detects marine mammals.
Blimey.
I went, that's a story.
100%.
That is, you don't even need to tell it. You just need to put a photograph of the battery next to a photograph of a whale, and that is a story. You're doing something that nobody else does. There's just so much potential in that one battery that they've never thought of. They think it's boring because it's there every day. And I could give you countless examples where I go to places and they go, well, we don't think that's really interesting. I'm going, it is compelling. It is just the way you turn up the dial and the way you approach it.
It's
and
mad,
you don't
isn't it?
have to be Graham Norton. You don't have to be Ian McKellen to be a storyteller. Some of my favourite TED Talks are people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. They're quite geeky and nerdy, and they're not brilliant magnetic storytellers. They're just passionate about their product, or they're passionate about their charity. And I think just reignite your passion. Remember what you started your business for. Remember what got you going and got your juices flowing. Tap into that. Tell those stories, and you can tell them in lots of different ways. The other thing I encourage people to do is, people love a peek behind the curtain.
Yes.
And again, this is something companies at first go, well, yeah, but not us. We've got no one who's interested. And I do an exercise. It's never let me down. I did it on Saturday. And I said, write down a qualification, something you've achieved, something in the past that you've not shared with each other. And it absolute silence. They just go, I've got nothing. And I go, we're not going to have a cup of coffee until everyone's written it on a post-it note. Go back through your brain, and it might be a musical instrument you put away. It might be a qualification you got, a sporting achievement, a mountain you climbed, a river you swam. You watched all the James Bond films in a day. Whatever it is, and I bully them into writing something down. And they're awkward, and they're shifting about, shaking their heads. And then eventually, because that threat of the cup of coffee, they write it down. And every one of them is gold dust. Every one of them is a LinkedIn post, a YouTube short, and the only person who thinks it's not interesting is the person who wrote it down. And I read them out one at a time, and it is, on Saturday, I saved someone's life in a river in the Congo. And I went, and nobody knew, and they all thought they knew this fella. And I went, tell us the story. And everyone leaned forward and opened their eyes. Well, imagine that effect online.
I love it so much, and people are interesting, and people need to get more comfortable with the storytelling and sharing all of that. Alfie, I could talk to you all day. Tell us a bit about what you're doing right now in terms of the speakeasy stuff, and what you're offering now in terms of your services.
So I coach. I don't particularly want to be a coach, but people are asking me to coach them, which is great because I've spoke in so many different ways, whether it was in churches and cathedrals, whether it was in radio stations or stand-up comedy stages. I know how to speak. I know how microphones work. I know how to project. So I have something to offer. But what I really, really enjoy at the minute is speaking about it. And doing it at a conference. I love multi-speaker conferences where there's different speakers speaking about different things. So I'd be happy to parachute into wherever yours is. And I do it for charities. I go into charities or businesses and just speak about speaking and speak about the importance of storytelling and don't sit on your stories.
And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, Alfie Joey. Simple.
Amazing. And we'll make that super easy and pop the links in the show notes. Awesome.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. If you're serious about growing your profile, take our free profile assessment quiz to see where you're at right now and get hints and tips on how to improve your score. You'll find the link to the quiz in the show notes. If you've enjoyed the episode, it would be mint if you'd subscribe, like, and leave a review. See you next Monday.